Voices of the Valley, episode 9. This is a little bit different than the normal voices we do. We're going to go around campus, ask people about censorship and how they feel about it. Hi, I am here with
Tyler Hewitt.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Hewitt. So we're asking about censorship today, and how do you feel about censorship in general?
In general, I think it's pretty much a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen a compelling reason yet to ever censor really anything.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that some things should be censored, or is there a line, and how do we choose that line?
The line would be things like hate speech.
Yeah.
There's no really good reason for it. I mean, there are things, say, comedians are a good example, that can kind of skirt that line for, purposes of parody or irony or whatever, but aside from that, there's really no reason to use speech like that except to inflame people. Mm-hmm. That's not a good reason for me. So.
All right, well, thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Have a great day.
You too, thanks.
Yep. So I'm here with
Charles
and
Sabran.
How do you guys feel about censorship? Do you think it's overall good or bad thing?
I think censorship, when it comes to artists, it shouldn't. I think censorship shouldn't be promoted when it comes to artwork. Mm-hmm. But however, if it comes to something offensive, then I think it should be censored.
I think it matters with the age. If it's nudes, like stuff like exposed bodies, I think it matters with the audience. Kids shouldn't see it. And explicit songs should be censored when it's kids. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't agree with what he said per se, because anything explicit wouldn't be explicit to the artists themselves. Artwork is a form of expression, so I personally think that if the artist is putting his work out there for a specific audience, they're not putting it out for children per se. So children shouldn't actually see it, and it's not promoted towards them. Children are not an artist's specific demographic, for them to consume their content. So So when it comes to anything sex-related, nudity, explicit cursing and stuff like that, it shouldn't be censored because it's not towards children. It's not meant for children to consume that content. It's meant for people who are of age and who are interested in the artist's interests and stuff like that to be involved in.
Do you have a counterpoint?
Mad facts.
So we talked about a little bit about video censorship. How do you guys feel about free speech censorship? Do you think everyone should be censored, or do you think that there's a line, and if we've crossed it already, if we should cross it, who decides who can be censored or not?
Free speech. You said free speech. Well, you have the amendment of freedom of speech, but I feel like some statements cross the line, and some stuff shouldn't be said. That's it.
Cool.
Okay. Here's my input on freedom of speech and the First Amendment. Is it the First Amendment or the...
That is the First Amendment.
Oh, okay, I was right. Okay. So freedom of speech. You know how everything is political nowadays? Everything is political. We have the right side who say incredibly offensive things. They have their own conspiracy theories. They have their own, they have their own statements to stir outrage, and so does the left. Mm-hmm. There's a balance between the right and the left, despite their beliefs. And I personally believe that freedom of speech, opinions should not be censored. However, offensive opinions should be taken accounted for and not it's gonna cause outrage. It's gonna cause outrage, but I'm pretty sure everyone has to everyone has morals and beliefs, and we don't have to believe in the outrage of what people say. People just say to cause outrage.
You're getting me fired up over here. Like, I'm getting, like, angry with you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you have like the far right people with they want to ban abortions. They want to they're not pro Black Lives Matter. They oppress people of color. They oppress women of color. And in the far left, the far left can be incredibly anti-Semitic. They can be anti-Semitic. They're incredibly neoliberal, meaning that they support a capitalist system without actually supporting, workers, workers who are being exploited of their labor, and no one can win. You see, when it comes to freedom of speech, everyone wants to say something, but every time we say something, it comes this black abyss. Everyone has their own opinions of the world, and it just it gets sucked into this black abyss, and it's only taken accounted for by the people who share the same interests, and there's no improvement. I feel like there's no improvement in the world when it comes to the right or the left. And in the middle is just the middle, they have no side. They take no sides. Have you ever felt that way?
Of course. I feel like a lot of people in the middle, they try and see both ways, but it's really hard to fall into, I don't know, line. It's, you kind of go one way or the other, and it depends who you put yourself around too, because there's a lot of people that are just this way or just that way. And I think that our generation specifically is good in terms of trying to get both ways, both sides. And I think we're on the way there, freedom of speech. In terms of that, what do you guys think what do you think is the line? Who decides what should be said and what shouldn't? And why are we letting social media companies decide what we can say online when they don't have to act within those rights that we have given to us by our government?
Okay, the media is itself controlled by government officials and politicians. So even I learned this in composition class just yesterday, and in this video that my professor showed us, they said that the media is controlled by politicians and basically billionaires with their own political influences. And so there are people who are being censored for advocating and breaking the barrier of oppression and speaking out, such as the Free Palestine statements. Yes. And there's another one. Palestine and the Ukraine situation. The Ukraine is getting much more publicity. That's good, but when it comes to Palestinians, I'm a Palestinian, there's not that much outrage when it comes to my people. Yeah, and it gets very much censored because there's a lot of hatred towards Palestinians, and the same thing goes towards loads of people of color. I'm literally trying to think of more people.
Our news editor Nick Stolga is literally writing a story this week about how Ukraine is getting more coverage than how Afghanistan or Iraq, he's literally writing a story about that this week that'll be out on this Sunday at the website, so make sure you guys check it out. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you guys, I appreciate it. I was just wondering if you think censorship is a good idea or a bad idea online.
I think to a limit it's a good idea. Maybe in the process of age, depending on certain age, young or teenage, I'd say some censorship is fine. Adults, I don't think so. But it also depends on the subject they're looking for. Nothing illegal, nothing that will hurt someone else. If that means putting on censorship, well then I guess yes. But if it means in general anything that's safe, anything, someone's opinion, someone's news, I'd say no censorship.
Do you think that social media companies having the power to ban people, whoever they want, for reasons, Is that affect our freedom of speech?
Now, in that category, I'd say it does affect us. It does put censorship on us. That's why people have come up with, fake news, and you don't want that. You want both sides. You want to make a decision, educational decision. So hearing both sides is just fair.
Interesting. Well, thank you very much, Monica.
You're welcome.
So I'm here with.
Sarah.
How you doing today, Sarah?
I'm good.
Do you think that social media companies having the power to ban people for saying something online, do you think that affects our freedom of speech?
I mean, yeah, some ways I think it's kind of biased, like when it comes to specific like races and people, because like there could be an Asian person like saying something about their own opinion, and then that comment gets removed, but then when someone else, like a white person, says it, it's totally fine. I've seen it like multiple times on social media comments, and it's like really unfair.
Very true. And what social media do you think you see this happening most?
Most of the time it's on TikTok, or maybe sometimes even Twitter, Instagram, that kind of stuff. It's a complete mess.
So do you think any censorship is bad, or should we have all censorship? Where do you think we can draw the line?
I believe there should be more monitored over what comments are left behind, because obviously in some social media platforms there's absolutely no censorship for any of comments or videos posted. I've seen that multiple times, and it's just really unfair. It makes no sense really. They just pick and choose at this point, whatever they want to block, whatever they don't want to block, that kind of stuff.
Well, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Have a good one.
I'm here today with Mr.
Pete Porter.
And how are you doing today, Mr. Porter?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing great. So we're asking about censorship today. We just want to know if you think social media companies banning people for what they say online is an infringement on our free speech.
It's tough because they're private companies, so there's a whole kind of legal aspect of it that goes in. But in general, I think free speech is important. I think people should – I'm a scientist, so I think dialogue the truth comes from multiple opinions and a diversity of different thoughts. And I think even when you disagree with somebody, even when there's an opinion that you don't like, being able to have that discourse to try and find the truth of a matter, I think, is always important. So it's kind of a tricky situation because they're a private company, and so they kind of should be able to maybe do what they want to do. But I think in general, we should be fostering people's ability to voice a variety of opinions and all hear each other's opinions so that we can kind of learn from each other and get to the truth of the matter.
Do you think censorship is good, or do you think it's overall a bad thing?
That's very difficult to answer because that's just a very quick black and white. Yeah. I think it can have elements of both. I think sometimes censorship can be necessary. Like when you talk about things like hate speech and you talk about things, I think that there are sometimes evil, vile things that, people shouldn't be allowed to propagate. But I also think that there's things where dialogue is very important, where we can kind of learn from each other and talk to each other about different issues and different things that we disagree. I think right now we are very divided and we're not maybe coming together and talking to each other about issues. So I think censorship kind of promotes that. So it's not a black and white issue to me. It's almost like a case-by-case basis. And who gets to decide that case-by-case basis? Who gets to decide what gets censored and not? That's where it gets tricky.
Yeah, that was going to be literally my next question. Okay. Where's the line? How do we draw the line in the sand where it can go and not?
It's really hard, and that's why a lot of people's default is free speech, because nobody wants... It's very hard to say one person or a group of people should decide what people get to say and what people don't get to say. And so that's why people sort of err on the side of free speech and say, well, we shouldn't be deciding. We should listen to everybody, and we can be our own filters for what we accept and what we don't accept. For multimedia companies, I think if they're going to do things like that, big tech companies, having a committee of people with a wide range of different backgrounds to make decisions on that. So maybe if there's something that they have that they think would be something that they don't think is appropriate to be out there, really taking that role seriously and having a group of people across different disciplines, from different groups, from different walks of life, different ages, just all kinds of different people talking about that and discussing the ramifications of that. I think that's probably the best solution. Is to not leave it up to one person, but to make it the largest group of people you can to decide of that. But in general, I think we should be hearing each other and listening to each other and hearing those different points of view. Otherwise, that's how we marginalize people. You know, that's how we stop listening to people we don't think their opinion is valuable, we think their opinions are bad. You know, that's how that kind of thing happens. So I think we should be listening to people more and allowing people's expression of speech as much as we can.
Well, thank you, Mr. Porter.
Sure.
Have a great. All right, I'm here with Mr.
I'm Tom Dow.
How are you doing today, Mr. Dow?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And you?
Good, thank you. So, do you think that tech companies banning people online is an infringement on our free speech?
Honestly, I do. I'm not in favor of people being banned from saying what's on their mind. I think we don't always have to like what people say, but one of our First Amendment rights is to speak our minds.
One of our other interviews brought up how it's a private company. Do you think that affects it at all?
I think in the case of big tech and social media, they're private companies, but I think they're serving a public purpose, very much like, of course, television networks are private companies, and so our radio stations are private companies. But I think there's still a responsibility to uphold people's right to say what they want to say, knowing that, of course, there are consequences, right, for what you say. Hopefully people, although I do agree, obviously, that you can't say things that will immediately harm someone physically, like you can't yell fire in a theater, but I know that's the old example.
Do you think there's a line to be drawn? Like, is all censorship bad, or should there be some, or what do you think?
I'm really not in favor of any censorship, honestly. Maybe because I've spent my life teaching at a community college. I really believe that we all have things to say and that we live in a country where we should be able to say them. But again, we can't say them and assume there will be no consequences.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Dow.
All right, thank you.
I'm here today with...
Amari Connor.
Nice to meet you, Amari. How are you doing today?
Good, and you?
Good. So, how do you feel about censorship online? Do you think it's an infringement on our free speech?
Yes, I know. I feel like, personally, when it comes down to it, we should all have a freedom of speech, and sometimes it plays a part, sometimes it doesn't. It kind of conflicts us when it comes to our own thoughts.
Do you think it's all good, all bad, or there's like a gray area there when it comes to censorship? Should there be some? Should there not be any at all? What do you think?
It's a gray area for me, but I feel like sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. So that's my opinion on it. I just feel like it's a gray area in between.
So do you think that there should be some or should not?
I think there should be some, just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yes.
And who do you think should decide who gets censored, what gets censored, and what not?
I feel like parents should be able to decide what gets censored, especially for kids in the generation that we have to watch out what they're like watching and what they're looking for.
You know, that is honestly one of the best answers we've gotten for that question. Like, that makes so much sense to me. I think there should be more opportunities for parents to censor things online for their kids, because there are parental controls, but I don't think it does enough. I think there should be more of a thing.
YouTube, for instance, still has, like, you have parental controls, but kids now are finding ways to turn that off, so it's a little concerning for me, at least.
Well, thank you very much, Mari.
You're welcome.
Have a great day. All right, I'm here today with...
Allison. Sarah.
All right, guys, do you think that online censorship from entertainment companies is an infringement on our free speech?
Personally, no. I feel like I should have prepared for this.
Yeah, you're fine. This is all opinion, so it doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong answer here.
I think, well, actually, yeah, I do. Partially, I do.
Yeah, I think so. I feel really strongly about it just because, like, I'm Palestinian, and a lot of the time when we were, like, talking about Free Palestine and all of that, it was getting blocked by certain, like, companies and all of that, and TikTok.
And do you guys think that there should be some censorship or no censorship at all, or is it like a gray area there?
No, I think we should be able to talk about whatever we want to talk about.
Like, you would think you'd want censorship, like, for certain, like, things that you're, like, not cool with, like racism and stuff like that, but then it's like, where do we draw the line? I'd say more gray area, like, because you can't really be like, oh, censor this but don't censor that. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right, I am here with...
My name is James.
And I was just wondering, do you think that big tech companies censoring people online is an infringement on our free speech?
I do. I do think that.
And do you think that all censorship is bad, or is there a gray area where some people could be censored and stuff?
I think that if it has to do with the safety of others, especially minors, you should have censorship involved.
Definitely. I completely agree with you on that. I want to ask, who do you think should decide on what gets censored and what shouldn't?
That's a hard question. I think that it definitely shouldn't go to the big tech companies. I think that there should be a board of people who decide.
All right, well, thank you, James. I appreciate it.
Of course.
So I'm here with
Daniel. Darius.
Daniel and Darius. And guys, I just want to ask, do you think censorship is an infringement upon our freedom of speech?
A little bit, yes.
Well, if you ask me, I think censorship is sort of a gray area, but is a little bit in a little bit of bad area. You see, because censorship takes away from something that someone wants to discover. Like take South Park and all the other artists that be discovered, like Eminem, for instance. He had people try to censor him. They try to censor him, but it's merely about free speech, and free speech could go into boundaries. But what they can do instead of censorship, they could just give you a warning. You see, because if you warn people about the product itself, then you won't have to go into the issues of it when you discover the product. But once you know what you're getting yourself into, it's pretty much a decision game. So I think that's the appropriate move that people should do when it comes to online instead of censorship. Because when you censor everything, it's just everything is just bland. Everything's supposed to work in the same direction, is go to the same path. It just doesn't seem right,
I really like that answer. So do you guys think that there should be some level of censorship, or should there be none at all, or if there should be more than that?
I think there should be some level, but not completely to the point where we can't even practice our free speech. I agree with him when it comes to that. I think we do have the right to be have a free speech. I think we have the right to say what we want, which is why I prefer not to be censored if we have to be. But at the same time, there is a gray area. If it's too out there, I agree that maybe it should be a little bit censored. But at the same time, I don't think everything should be censored.
Yeah, and when you go to YouTube, when you watch YouTube videos, they when you come across to videos that are for mature audiences, you can usually make an account and then sign into it. So I think that's an appropriate thing to do. And they also invented YouTube Kids, which is I think is an appropriate idea, because I've seen some of the stuff that my little sis watch on YouTube, and it's a little bit questionable in a way, and not just because of language, because I think it's a little bit cringe and all that kind of stuff, So when it comes to that, I think censorship can be, not over the top, but it could be, step by step. You could just ease into it. That seems like an appropriate thing to do. You could just ease into it and not go hardcore with it. You don't want to hardcore censor everything in life, because if you do that, then all you got is just people who are, sensitive. I don't like being sensitive.
Yeah, I was going to say, in a democratic society, if there's too much censorship, where is the democracy? Because the biggest thing about a democratic society is our voices being heard. And if you're censoring voices, especially on stuff that is technically a public utility, because everybody uses social media, you're not going to get those same amount of opinions out there. And so I just want to ask you guys, who should decide who should be censored? You both said that there shouldn't be a lot of censorship, but there still should be some. So who gets to decide, and what specifically should be censored?
I think it should be us as the people in general. If we choose, we feel we have to censor some things, I think it should be up to us, and maybe a vote or something, or discuss it more, not just let someone else, a corporation or something, just do that for us. Yeah. That's my opinion.
I like that answer.
when it comes to like people who needs to be censored or anything, I think it should be the moderators or anyone who's being in charge of that specific brand or online entertainment or whatever we're talking about to just moderate people. You got to be able to like moderate people and just determine who should be like censored, because it could go like either way. You can tell whether you could tell if they're being serious or just being kind of a dick or something like that. But to be perfectly honest, I think the people in charge of it needs to be moderating people and see if there's some level of boundary they should take. They should take they should like go a certain way, or they could just like maybe step back a little and maybe give them a warning or something like that. But if you moderate people, it just goes it just easier. It just goes an easier path.
All right. Well, thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Darius. That was awesome. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
That was cool.